A NASCAR champion is walking away from his own home track this weekend, and the reason has nothing to do with bad form, a broken car, or a falling out with his team. It's a plan that was locked in before the season even started, and it's about to send him into a truck that once belonged to a man who is no longer alive to drive it. By the end of this video, you'll understand why one driver is quietly giving up an award he has won 8 years in a row, why a rookie is treating 4 ordinary points races like the biggest fight of his career, and why a single truck painted with a single sponsor has turned into one of the most emotional storylines in the entire sport right now. Stay with this one all the way through because the final piece of this puzzle doesn't fall into place until the very end. Before we get into it, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next in this story, because there are still more chapters coming before this season is over. The night that changed everything. Let's start with what actually happened, because none of the rest of this makes sense without it. Chase Elliott climbed into the number 88 Chevrolet for JR Motorsports in the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race at Chicagoland Speedway. On paper, that sounds like a routine assignment for a Cup Series champion. In reality, it was anything but routine, and it mattered for 2 separate reasons. First, this was the first NASCAR race of any kind held at Chicagoland Speedway since 2019. The track had disappeared from the schedule for years, and its return alone was a headline. Second, this was the first time Chase Elliott had started an O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race for JR Motorsports since 2021. 5 seasons had passed since he last competed in that car for that team. He didn't just show up to log laps and collect a paycheck, he finished second. For a driver returning to a series after a 5-year gap, a runner-up finish is close to the ceiling of what was realistically possible that night. And then, just like that, it was over. One race. That was always the entire plan. Why the champion is skipping his own home race. Here's where it gets strange if you don't already know the backstory. Chase Elliott is not in the number 88 Chevrolet this weekend. The race is at Echo Park Speedway, the track in Hampton, Georgia, and Chase Elliott is from Dawsonville, Georgia. This is his home track, in the truest sense of the phrase, and he's skipping it. That sounds like a strange decision for any driver to make voluntarily. It stops sounding strange the moment you understand exactly how this particular ride was built from the ground up. The car that belongs to nobody and everybody. To understand why so many different names keep cycling through this one car, you have to go back to the start of the season. Rajah Caruth was brought into JR Motorsports to replace Connor Zeilish, who moved up to compete full-time at the Cup Series level for Trackhouse racing. That part is simple enough. The complicated part is that Caruth's contract does not cover the full season. He is locked in for 23 of the 33 races on the calendar. The remaining 10 races were split up among the Cup Series drivers from Hendrick Motorsports. Here's how that split actually played out across the year. Kyle Larson was scheduled for 3 starts, and he has completed all 3. He then also absorbed 2 additional starts that were originally assigned to Alex Bowman, bringing his total to 5. William Byron was scheduled for 3 starts and has completed all 3 as well. Chase Elliott, meanwhile, was given just 2 starts for the entire season. Chicagoland Speedway was the first of those 2. That's the entire explanation for why the number 88 Chevrolet has looked like a revolving door all year. It wasn't an accident. It was designed that way from day one. Think about what that actually means for the driver stuck in the middle of it. A full-time competitor's entire championship hopes are riding on a car that isn't fully his, sitting inside a schedule that was carved up before the green flag ever dropped on the season opener. Every single time one of those Hendrick Cup drivers climbs in for their scheduled cameo, Rajah Caruth is watching from the outside, in a weaker car, at a team 17 spots lower in the owner standings. That's the exact setup he's been racing inside of since February, and it's the exact setup that pushed him nearly 50 points underwater with barely a month left on the clock to fix it. The fight for a playoff life. For Rajah Caruth, this stretch of the season is not just important. It might be the most important stretch of his career so far, and the numbers explain exactly why. With 4 races remaining in the regular season, Caruth sits 14th in the driver point standings, 48 points below the playoff cut line. That's a real deficit with very little track left to make it up. Atlanta should help. Caruth opened the season at Echo Park Speedway back in February and finished 8th after qualifying 6th. leading 22 laps and winning a stage. That result put him second in the overall standings after just 2 races, on the back of aggressive, careful racing where he avoided multiple wrecks around him and still found a way to the front. He's been fast there before, and he knows exactly what that track demands from a driver. But there's a structural problem working against him, and it's worth laying out clearly, because it explains almost everything else about his season. JR Motorsports itself arrives at Echo Park with a strong history at the track, and that matters here too. A team that already knows how to unload a fast car at a 1.54-mile quad oval like this one is exactly the kind of environment a driver chasing a playoff spot wants to be dropped into. If there was ever a weekend for Caruth to make up ground fast, this is the one the schedule handed him. 2 teams, 2 realities. Rajah Caruth is splitting his season between 2 completely different organizations. When he isn't in the number 88 Chevrolet for JR Motorsports, he's driving the number 32 Chevrolet for Jordan Anderson Racing. The gap between those 2 teams isn't small. The number 88 team currently sits second in the owner standings. The number 32 team sits 17th. These are not 2 versions of the same opportunity. They are 2 completely different competitive realities, and the results make that painfully obvious. Caruth has recorded multiple top 10 finishes this season, and the overwhelming majority of them have come out of the number 88 Chevrolet, not the number 32. His best finish of the entire year, a 4th-place run, also came out of the JR Motorsports car at Rockingham Speedway. So every single start he gets in that number 88 Chevrolet functions like a playoff race in disguise because it's simply a stronger car in a stronger organization, and he only has a limited number of those starts left to work with. Asked about splitting his year between 2 organizations while trying to chase down a championship spot, Caruth said it plainly. He's going to get the most out of the car, whichever one he's driving that week. And if you think that's the last twist in this points battle, keep watching, because the scheduling detail coming up next is the one that connects every single thread in this story back together. The countdown. Inside the countdown. There's one more scheduling detail buried in here, and it ties directly back to the Chase Elliott story in a way that's easy to miss. The only remaining race where Caruth is scheduled to drive the number 32 Chevrolet for Jordan Anderson Racing is the late July race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That is the exact same weekend Chase Elliott is scheduled to make his second and final start of the year in the number 88 Chevrolet. After Indianapolis, the arrangement changes for good. Caruth takes over the number 88 Chevrolet full-time for the entire 9-race postseason stretch, assuming he gets there. But he still has an uphill fight ahead of him to become one of the 12 championship-eligible drivers once the playoff field resets after the regular season finale at Daytona International Speedway in late August. Caruth has been direct about where he thinks he belongs. There's no reason, in his words, that he can't go and compete for the championship. He says he's confident in himself and in the team around him. Keep that Indianapolis weekend in the back of your mind, because it's going to come back up before we're finished here. The truck. No one wanted to inherit. Now here's the part of this story that isn't really about point standings at all, and it's the reason this entire weekend has people talking. Spire Motorsports announced that Chase Elliott will drive the number 7 Chevrolet Silverado in the Faith Fest 250 at North Wilkesboro Speedway, with HendrickCars.com sponsoring the car. On the surface, that reads like fun news. A Cup Series star making a rare Truck Series appearance at a historic short track is exactly the kind of storyline fans love. But this particular truck isn't just any truck. It's the truck that carried Kyle Busch to the final win of his career. Kyle Busch died in May at the age of 41. According to his death certificate, he had been dealing with bacterial pneumonia for days to weeks before his death. That pneumonia progressed into sepsis, and the sepsis triggered disseminated intravascular coagulation, a rare blood clotting disorder that damages organs and causes uncontrollable internal bleeding. That condition then led to hemorrhagic shock, which was ultimately listed as the cause of death. His family had already told the public, in their own words, that severe pneumonia had progressed into sepsis, resulting in rapid and overwhelming complications. The death certificate simply confirmed in clinical terms exactly what that chain of events looked like on the inside. His death sent a genuine shock through the entire motorsports world, and it's hard to overstate the scale of what he'd actually accomplished by that point. Kyle Busch won 234 races across NASCAR's top 3 national series, more than any driver in the sport's history. 69 of those wins came in the Truck Series alone. He was a 2-time Cup Series champion. The number 7 and the name behind it. For the 2026 season, Kyle Busch had signed an 8-race deal to run the number 7 Chevrolet Silverado for Spire Motorsports. He completed 4 of those 8 races before his death, and he won 2 of them, taking the checkered flag at Atlanta in February and then again at Dover Motor Speedway in May. That Dover win came just 6 days before he died. It was the final victory of his career, and it turned out to be the last points race he ever ran. After that Dover win, someone asked Kyle Busch why the feeling of winning never seemed to get old for him. His answer has taken on an entirely different weight since. "You never know," he said, "when the last one is." After his death, Spire Motorsports was left with a schedule to finish and no driver to finish it. The number 7 Chevrolet Silverado became a seat that's been filled race by a rotating list of drivers. Corey Day took the truck at Charlotte Motor Speedway and crashed out. Rajah Caruth drove it at Nashville Superspeedway and finished second. In between those two, the seat also passed through the hands of Michael McDowell, Connor Mosack, and Sammy Smith, none of whom were able to find victory lane in it. North Wilkesboro Speedway is the next race on that original schedule, and that's the call that ultimately went to Chase Elliott. Counting Kyle Busch himself, Elliott becomes the 7th different driver to sit behind the wheel of that exact truck this season. There's still one more race left on Kyle Busch's original slate after this one, at Richmond Raceway in August, and as of right now, Spire Motorsports has not named a driver for it. This is 2026, Spire Motorsports' 5th straight season fielding a Truck Series program, and the 3rd year in a row that the number 7 entry has run full-time as the team's showcase car. Across those years, that one entry has produced 8 of the team's 12 total Truck Series victories, spread between just 3 different drivers. Kyle Busch was responsible for 2 of this year's wins alone, at Atlanta in February and Dover in May, before anyone else ever got a chance behind the wheel. The seat that kept changing hands. The connection between Spire Motorsports and Kyle Busch runs far deeper than a single contract, and that's a big part of why this particular seat carries the weight that it does. The headquarters Spire Motorsports operates out of was formerly the home of Kyle Busch Motorsports, his own Truck Series organization, before Spire purchased those assets back in 2023. On top of that, Spire co-owner Jeff Dickerson served as Kyle Busch's spotter and agent early in his career. The weekend after Busch's death, every Spire Motorsports truck carried Kyle Busch Motorsports logos on the rear bumper, and the number 7 Chevrolet carried his name on the rear window. Jeff Dickerson later described the standard his friend held everyone around him to, saying that his demand for perfection was never a burden. Why this truck? Why this driver? So why does Chase Elliott make sense for this specific truck in this specific series, beyond simple name recognition? The reason goes back further than most people remember. Back in 2020, when Kyle Busch was dominating the Truck Series, a driver put up a $100,000 bounty for any full-time Cup Series driver who could beat Busch in a truck race. Chase Elliott did exactly that at Charlotte Motor Speedway. He beat Kyle Busch, took the win, and collected the money. These two men have real documented history in this exact series, on this exact kind of stage. The record few remember Chase Elliott's truck record is also stronger than most casual fans would guess. In 18 career Truck Series starts, he has 3 wins and an average finish of 7.7. His first truck win came in 2013 at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. He won again at Martinsville Speedway in 2017 and then at Charlotte Motor Speedway in 2020, the same race where he collected that Kyle Busch bounty. He hasn't run a truck race since 2023, when he finished 10th at Daytona International Speedway. He's never been a full-time Truck Series competitor, but when he does show up, he wins at a rate very few drivers in the sport can match. He's also never raced a truck at North Wilkesboro Speedway before, which adds one more unknown into an already loaded weekend. The busiest weekend of his career, that weekend, is shaping up to be one of the busiest of Chase Elliott's entire career, because he isn't just doing one thing at North Wilkesboro. He's pulling triple duty across 3 straight days. On Friday night, he races in the Z-Max Cars Tour late model event at North Wilkesboro Speedway, driving the number 8 entry for JR Motorsports with Napa Auto Parts as the primary sponsor. That series is co-owned by Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kevin Harvick, Jeff Burton, and Justin Marks, and this will be the very first time Chase Elliott has ever competed in it. On Saturday, he climbs into the number 7 Chevrolet Silverado for Spire Motorsports in the Truck Series. On Sunday, he's back in his own number 9 Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports in the Cup Series. For a little extra context on just how big that weekend is, the Cup Series race at North Wilkesboro this season will be the first top-level points race the track has hosted since 1996. 3 different cars, 3 different numbers, 3 different series, in 3 days, at a track that hasn't seen a Cup points race in 3 decades. That's the kind of weekend most drivers never get once in a career, and fans who notice the numbers involved have already pointed out that it lines up as a literal 7, 8, 9 across 3 straight nights. The number 7 truck on Saturday, the number 8 late model on Friday, and his own number 9 Cup car on Sunday. Some coincidences write themselves. If that weekend was the only storyline here, it would already be one of the biggest of the year. But it's not even the part of this story that people are talking about the most. The award he gave away. Here's the part of this story that might be the most revealing of all, and it has nothing to do with a car. After Kyle Busch died, Chase Elliott withdrew his own name from the ballot for NASCAR's Most Popular Driver Award. This is an award Chase Elliott has won 8 consecutive years in a row. He pulled himself out of consideration specifically in the hope that Kyle Busch would win it instead. Explaining the decision, Elliott said he just felt like Kyle was a guy who really deserved something like that, a guy who'd had a lot of fans over the course of his career. A sport that hasn't stopped grieving. It's worth pausing here to understand just how present Kyle Busch's death still is inside this sport, months later. This isn't a story that faded after a week of tributes and moved on. NASCAR has continued organizing public remembrances for him, including a celebration of life open to fans, and drivers across every series keep bringing his name back up in interviews without being asked. When a truck carrying his name and his sponsor rolls back out onto a track, it isn't background noise for the people racing against it. It's the biggest storyline of the weekend every single time it happens. That's part of why the choice of driver for these leftover races has mattered so much to fans. It hasn't just been about who's available or who fits the sponsor deal. It's been about who can be trusted to carry that truck the right way. And up to this point, drivers with real earned connections to Kyle Busch have kept getting the call. A family that has done this before. This isn't the first time this exact gesture has happened in the Elliott family. His father, Bill Elliott, did the same thing in 2001 after Dale Earnhardt Sr. was killed at Daytona International Speedway, 2 generations of the same family, 2 decades apart, making the identical choice after losing someone the sport respected. That's not a coincidence you can script. It's just who they are. With everything we've just walked through sitting in the background, it would be easy to forget that Chase Elliott actually has a Cup Series race to run this weekend too. Saturday night at Echo Park, Elliott heads into Echo Park Speedway as a co-favorite, tied for the best odds in the field alongside 2 other top contenders. He's also the defending winner at this exact track, having taken the win there a year ago on the final lap. Those odds come with a real caveat attached, though. Atlanta is pack racing. One multi-car accident can eliminate half the field and completely rewrite the entire result sheet in a matter of seconds. Pre-race favorites carry very little meaning once the wrecking actually starts. Chase Elliott currently sits 5th in the Cup Series point standings. He has 23 career Cup Series wins, including 2 already this season at Martinsville Speedway and Texas Motor Speedway. He's the 2020 Cup Series champion, a former champion of the second-tier O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, a 3-time winner of the duel at Daytona International Speedway, the winner of the first Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium in 2025, and the winner of the 2020 All-Star Race. That's the resume of the man who just gave away his own award, skipped his own home track in one series, and is about to strap into a dead man's truck in another. None of those accomplishments guarantee anything about Saturday night, though. Atlanta's drafting package has flipped results on drivers with far better resumes than a defending win from a year ago, and the entire field knows it. A green flag pass through the middle lanes can end a championship-caliber run in an instant, no matter what the odds board says beforehand. That's exactly what makes plate racing at this track so unpredictable, and exactly why nobody in that garage is treating Saturday night as a formality, no matter how good Elliott's numbers look walking in. The favorite with an asterisk. Put all of it together, and the full picture finally comes into focus. Rajah Caruth is fighting for his playoff life in a car he only gets to drive part of the time, with 48 points to make up and 4 races left to do it. Chase Elliott is preparing to race 3 different vehicles in 3 different series across a single weekend, one of which he's never competed in before, at a track he's never driven a truck on before either. And a number 7 Chevrolet Silverado is about to go back out onto a racetrack, carrying a meaning that has nothing to do with where it finishes. What happens next? There's still one loose thread nobody has tied up yet. That number 7 truck has one more race left on Kyle Busch's original schedule after North Wilkesboro at Richmond Raceway in August, and right now nobody knows who's going to be sitting in it. Every name that's driven it so far has carried some kind of connection to Kyle Busch, whether it's history, results, or respect, so whoever gets that final call is going to be carrying more than just a paycheck into that race. And remember that Indianapolis weekend we told you to keep in the back of your mind? That's the exact race where Chase Elliott and Rajah Caruth effectively swap lives again, one last time, before the number 88 Chevrolet becomes Caruth's alone for the rest of the year, if he can even get there. 2 Hendrick Motorsports storylines, 1 Truck Series seat carrying a legacy nobody wants to get wrong, and a rookie fighting to keep his championship hopes alive with a part-time car, all colliding inside the same stretch of the calendar. Whether Caruth closes that 48-point gap in time and who ends up behind the wheel of that number 7 truck in Richmond are both questions that are still completely unanswered. Make sure you're subscribed and notifications are turned on because both of those answers are coming, and neither one is going to be a quiet story when it lands.